Hi, everyone. We'll just give folks a couple more minutes to log in before we get started. Okay, well, it looks like we have all of the council members that we're expecting today. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, February 1st, 2022, and it is 1:02 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. My name is Unauna Thone. I'm chair of the council. I'm going to start off with introductions. Under the new Chapter 92 rules, we do have to state whether or not there is anybody else present in the room with us. So I'll go through the list. I'll call folks out and you can go ahead and identify yourself and then let me know if anybody else is in the room with you. For the record, we do have quorum. Okay, so let's start off with you, Robin. You're on mute.
You'd think after all of these meetings, we'd get this right. Sorry. My name is Robin Kay. I'm over here on Lanai, and there's nobody in the room with me.
Thanks, Robin. Tessie?
Tessie Kinnaman, no one in the room with me.
Thanks, Tessie. Dawn?
Dawn Hager Norblum, no one in the room with me except my shell collection.
Thanks. Ron Terry?
Ron Terry, solo.
Roy?
Roy Avi, I'm here alone.
Thank you. Mahina?
Mahina Tudor, nobody in the room with me.
Okay. Steph?
Aloha, Steph Marco, and I am alone.
Okay, thank you. Yari?
Mary Berger, I'm alone.
Okay, thanks. And Mike?
I'm Mike Tulang, finally back.
Welcome back, Mike. Is anybody in the room with you?
I got a new leg.
Congratulations. Hey, Mike, so we got these new Chapter 92 rules because we're holding these remotely. We also, when we introduce ourselves, have to note whether or not there's anybody else in the room with us. Is there anybody else in the room with you?
No.
No? Okay, thank you. Okay, Mary Alice?
I'm alone.
Okay, thank you. Les, you want to go ahead?
I'm alone in the LUC conference room, which you see. Thank you.
Thanks, Les. Okay, Jody,
Yes, Jody Yee with the Attorney General's office. I'm all by myself. Thank you.
okay, thanks, Jody. Okay, I'm gonna go on to members of the public now. Dean Watase. Hey, Dean, are you there? Okay, we'll come back to him. Tracy Lum.
HDOT Airports Division, and I'm alone in the cubicle.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Pane Meatonga.
Hi, I am by myself.
Hi, Pane, welcome. All right, Jayon.
I'm Jayan from HDOT Highways, and I'm alone.
Thank you. All right, I think it's Lynette, is that correct, Kaoka?
Yes, Lynette Kawoka, HDOT Airports Division, and I am alone.
Okay, thank you. Tomo Murata.
Yes, hi, this is Tomo Murata. I'm also HDOT, and I'm with the Statewide Transportation Planning Office. And yes, I'm alone here.
Thank you. All right, Dean Watase, we'll give you one more shot.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Yeah, Dean Watasi, DOT Harbors Division, and I'm alone as well.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, thank you, everybody. I know introductions take a little bit longer nowadays. We don't have any meeting minutes to go through today, so I'm gonna hand this over to Mary Alice Evans from OPSD for the director's report.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. I don't have a presentation today. I would note that a number of governor's messages were sent down to the legislature today that nominate new members for the commission. And I know that there's been some discussion of that. And I believe that we will be able to suggest a presentation to you for your next March meeting on cumulative impacts guidance to the county planning departments for shoreline management areas, which is not part of Chapter 343. It's actually part of Chapter 205A, which is under the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. But I think you will be interested to see how your chapter and rules have been utilized to create and align guidance to the county planners in reviewing SMA permits. So I'm hoping that'll be for March. Thank you, Chair. That's all I had to say. We are working on bills and testimony. So as I think everybody is who's got policy interests being looked at by the legislature.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mary Alice, for that. And I'll be sure to schedule, we'll coordinate to schedule the presentation for March.
Thank you.
Do any council members have questions for Mary Alice on her director's report?
Yes, I have a question. Were there any nominations to the Environmental Council included?
Yes.
Great.
Yep. And I think Robin will go ahead and talk about that more in the legislative committee update.
Okay, great.
And Robin, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question. Mary Alice, I wonder if at some point in the future, and absolutely no rush at all, but it might be interesting to have a presentation about MACSAC. Makal and I served on MACSAC. I think Ron was on MACSAC. It's a volunteer group. It's an advisory group. It's an advocacy group. It's different than us, but in many ways it's similar. And I thought, I don't know that everybody on our group knows about MACSAC. So when you have nothing on your agenda for what to present, maybe you might include a MACSAC presentation. Again, no rush, whenever.
We would be delighted to do that. MACSAC is very interesting. Listening to their hotspots presentation for areas where there are conflicts between various parts of our community over coastal and ocean resources is, I think, for me, it's really interesting. And I'd love to have the chair, Phil Fernandez, have a discussion with you and let you know what they're working on.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other council members, questions or comments for Mary Alice? Beth, go ahead.
I had a question, Mary Alice, and feel free to punt, but do you, would you be willing to just give us those like top 3 to 5 policy legislative initiatives that OPSD is looking at for this session?
Yes. So as you know, the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development is guided by the Hawaii State Plan Law, which is Chapter 226. And that's an interesting law that challenges us to find a balance between protecting the environment, ensuring a vibrant economy, and social equity. And as you know, those things sometimes appear to be in conflict, and sometimes they, it's finding that balance, and that balance changes every, with conditions. So right now we have 2 bills for our affordable housing initiative, which is our transit-oriented development initiative. And they support, one supports financing of infrastructure for urban infill that can be, can make increased capacity for affordable housing in urban areas. And another supports the Important Agricultural Lands program of the state, which is challenging. It's a incentive program that the legislature passed in 2008 that is a way to encourage agriculture, and now we look at it as a way to encourage local food production. So those are our 2 admin bills. We are following legislative bills that would add capacity to the county planning departments, county planning commissions, and county councils in looking at the rural district. The rural district is a very small district that was added after the first 3 state land use districts, and on most counties has almost no land in it because it's very hard to add land using a contested case hearing process, a quasi-judicial hearing process, because counties can't afford to do regional district boundary amendments. But there are lands, particularly on the neighbor islands, that are already fragmented into as small as 1 acre parcels in areas with no soil or no water. They are, in our view, perhaps more appropriate for rural subsistence and family farms, but not commercial agriculture, and that they would be more suitable for the rural district. But that's up to the counties to decide. What we're looking at is whether there's a way for the counties to do that cost effectively if their communities and constituents want it. So grassroots driven, but possible. Right now, it's almost impossible for cost requirements. So those are ones that we're following. There's some others. We're following coastal zone management bills as well, And we also want to support our GIS program, which supports all of the GIS users in the state. Let's see what else. And there are some sustainability bills that we are definitely supporting and following. Steph, does that help?
That helps. Thanks, Mary Alice.
Okay.
This is Mary Begier. That was a great report, Mary Alice. I wrote down everything you said.
Oh, no, don't do that. All of these things have elements of conflict. That's one of the reasons why the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development is so interesting, is that there are stakeholders in our community that are opposed and in support of pretty much everything that we look at. And so it makes, it's seeing where we can find balance or consensus, and taking that long view. As we protect our environment, how do we ensure that there's social equity, that our kids don't have to move to Las Vegas, all of those kinds of things that are challenging.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Council members, any other questions, comments? And members of the public, please feel free, you can comment or ask questions on any agenda item. So is there any members of the public who had any questions or comments on that, on the director's report? Okay, well, thank you again, Mary Alice. And, for the council, we'll get into the council legislative priorities, discussion of that later in the agenda. All right. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Ron now for the exemption committee update.
Thank you. We had an exemptions committee meeting today, and we had 2 items on the agenda, action items that are before you on your agendas here. And the first one was to recommend to the Environmental Advisory Council to approve release of the draft Board of Water Supply exemption list. And we consider this very carefully. We have Dominic Diaz here today from the Board of Water Supply. We'd had some original questions some months ago, which Board of Water Supply addressed. Because of the issues with their workload, they weren't able to get to our exemptions committee meeting for a while, but they are here. They were here for our exemptions committee today. Their responses were very clear. We didn't have any further questions during the meeting, and we unanimously approved the list for public release. If there's any questions from the council. And if there's any comment from any member of the public as far as discussion about this. Doesn't look like there is. Okay. Well, this recommendation constitutes a motion that does not require a second. And I would call for the question from the chair.
So again, the motion is to have the Board of Water Supplies exemption list published in the environmental notice for 15 days. All those in favor, if you can please raise your hand. Okay, there we go. And it is unanimous, so we will not need to do a roll call. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dominic, for attending a couple of meetings. Please take care of that. I probably should have mentioned that there's going to be there's a typo that's being fixed, and he's going to send that to Les prior to publication.
So I made the edit. I don't have the target email. I don't have Les's email. Is there any chance I could get that and I could send it right now?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll text it to you, Dom. I'll send you a text, a chat.
Okay.
Text. Okay.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dominic.
Thank you.
Okay, the other item on the agenda was the Hawaii Department of Transportation's new revised comprehensive exemption list. And we had some real productive discussions over the last couple meetings. And then prior to that too, with, I guess it was just me, but a number of members of the Department of Transportation. And I must say that they really put a lot of personnel on this, spent a lot of time crafting a concise and complete and quite a bit revised list that took a lot of consideration. There was, like I said, a lot of back and forth, probably reflecting the fact that I'd say DOT along with DLNR, the two state agencies that do the most on our land and that we're most concerned about. And I want to thank all the members of the DOT. Some of them are here today, many of them, but there were other folks on here as well for this effort that they engaged in. And like the Board of Water Supply, we did not have any significant comments on the latest version of the list. They responded to the questions that we had and with certain revisions. That's reflected in the copies that you all have from your agenda. And also for some things that we kind of asked about, they gave us responses as to why they didn't believe that those areas needed to be changed. We accepted those answers and again, unanimously approved a recommendation to the council to concur with the list. And again, I want to ask the council if they have any questions or comments.
So Ron, I'll just go ahead again. We said this in committee, but again, thank you to the Department of Transportation for, really going through that list in a lot of detail, coming back to us a few times and, taking the time to respond to our questions.
Yeah, it's really a model kind of a productive dialogue. And I mean, we really appreciated it. Are there any comments from any members of the public about this item? Okay, looks like we don't have any. Again, this motion to concur with the Department of Transportation's list, the committee recommendation is a motion. We don't need a second. So Chair, if you will.
All right, calling the question. All those in favor of concurring with the Department of Transportation's exemption list, please raise your hand and keep them up. All right, and it is unanimous. So thank you, folks. We don't need to do a roll call on this one either.
I just want to add a comment now that we've had two votes. Two things about our fellow councilman, Mr. Terry. First of all, every one of the exemption lists that have engendered conversation back and forth have commented on what a pleasure it was to work with Ron, not just because of his charming intellect, but because of the way in which he dealt with them and tried to make it better for them. I really thought that was very, very wonderful. And I wanted to point it out to all of you that might not read all of the exemption letters. The communications to him are great. I know somebody else must have written them for him, but nonetheless, they were
right. I have staff for that. I don't know if Faith will agree with that. Faith Kaplan may not agree with that. We'll see.
Secondly,
My
I want to
friend Kate.
recommend any of you who need someone to take minutes at a meeting, contract with Ron Terry. His minute taking is absolutely impeccable, perfect, doesn't need any kind of correction, and it's right on. So two things, well done, Mr. Terry.
Thank you, Robin. I have a great committee, so that makes it easy. So, members of the DOT here, thank you again for attending this and other meetings with us. We think it's been a productive process. As I've said before, you guys are environmental all-stars, really leading the way in a lot of areas. You have the toughest jobs in the state, and we appreciate what you do. And we look forward to your continued consideration of the environment. It's an evolving thing. We know we all struggle with it. You struggle with it too. But again, I just want to thank you for it. I can't wait to read the latest shoreline improvement EA. It's out. I think last issue. I'm going to read through it. Maybe I'll make a comment. So Tomo, thanks.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your help and guidance as well as the patience. So like I said at the morning or earlier meeting, the discussion with the exemption committee really helped us shape the exemption list. And I truly think it made it better. So thank you very much.
All right. That's great to hear. Thank you. So you folks are free to go or free to stay. We'll publish, Les will take care of including the list among those concurred lists on our website, so anybody can consult it at any time. So that concludes the exemption committee report. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Ron, and thank you everybody from Department of Transportation. Does anybody else, members of the public, have questions on the exemption committee? Questions or comments? Okay, well, if not, then I will go ahead and move on to the next agenda item, which is the legislative committee update. So Robin, on to you.
Thank you. We didn't have a legislative committee meeting today. We had one scheduled, but we had some technical glitches. So it was, and when it was fixed, it was too late. So I'm going to unfortunately talk for quite a bit, just bring it kind of up to speed on as much as I can legislatively. First of all, on January 11th, Onana and I met with Senator Gabbard and Rep. Lowen. And I got to say, both of them, again, have stepped up to the plate in support of the things that we have requested of them. We began the conversation with Onana walking them through what's happened since HB 1318, which they, of course, helped to create. And they were very pleased to hear that we were working well with Mary Alice and OPSD and that things were moving forward. We talked a lot about how successful the INO presentations were, and they were pleased to hear that. They gave us a little bit of a caution in that they were advising us not to cast our net too far, and for example, suggested we might want to schedule one on 343 to help educate the community about that. But they thought that our outreach was a good effort for us. It was a good session with them. Their legislative priorities were pretty clear. I'll go over just the Rep. Lowen's and Senator Gabbard's quickly. Rep. Lowen's priorities were on the issue of climate change, decarbonization, especially within the PUC and HECO's processes, plastic waste, green fees, Ron, pay attention here, cesspools, and the issue, of course, of Red Hill. And you'll find a lot of these reflective in the bills that I'll talk about in a little bit. Senator Gabbard had three priorities. He was very specific. One was green fees, SB 666. One was the Green Amendment, SB 502. And another one was to try and become more carbon positive, which was SB 493. You, of course, will know that the challenge of tracking legislation, Mary Alice, I'm sure, can agree to this, and Mary as well, and everybody else that does it. We now have 2 years worth of bills to look at. And so it's just made it a lot more challenging. We reference to both Senator Gabbard, and Onana, anytime I'm off track, just please jump in. You were obviously we're at these meetings. We reference to both of them some of the concerns that you all raised, and we boiled it down to 4 specific issues. One was geothermal, and Rep. Lowen was very interested in expanding that conversation. We suggested that we needed more information. The state needed more information, and in fact, I've noticed, I think about a week ago, they've published they've scheduled a webinar on geothermal on the Big Island. I don't have the information. I saw Mary Alice shake her head. Maybe she does. I don't have the actual information, but if I get it, I will ask Les to send it out to you. But it was a webinar on geothermal. Her point being that she agreed with us when we said that we needed a larger conversation about it. We talked about herbivore management, and we talked about deer and pigs and goats, but Rep. Lowen wanted to make sure they included a focus on fish as well and what's going on. Green fees, clearly there's a lot of attention to that. You'll see from the legislation that's been proposed, it's lots of references to green fees. And then lastly, we raised the Kauai issue about that Makala asked us to raise, which was about water storage and the issues of dams. And they did agree that we needed to have more talk about it. I didn't follow up on doing a search for that in the legislative part, but and then the last part of our conversation with them was wonderful in the result. That is, they heard us and actually moved forward to help us. The first issue we talked about with them was the issue of quorum. And as you'll see, if you look at HB 1810, which I would encourage you all to look at, it changes the definition of quorum. And our chair drafted some language for them to consider. And I'm pretty sure it followed pretty closely to what Onana suggested. They were very supportive of that, understood it right away, and Onana offered them two ways to do it, and I think they chose the legislative way. So Onana.
The council specific way, yeah. So what we talked about was either amending our statute to specifically say that quorum is a majority of the members actually appointed, rather than a majority of the members the council is entitled to have, which helps us. Or they could do it via, so that's going to be an amendment. The proposed bill right now is to Chapter 341, which touches just the council. The other proposed amendment was to Chapter 92, which, basically the default is unless your statute says what your quorum number is, then it's the majority of the number of members that the body is able to have, right? Not actually appointed. So we weren't sure if they were going to want to fix this for all boards or if it was just council specific. And it looks like they proposed a bill that is council specific.
And the good thing about it is that it's only been referred to 2 committees. And from what I understand, 3 committees is often the death knell for legislation. So I think we were heard and they actually followed through. So thank you, Onana, for the language, and thank you, Rep. Lowen and Senator Gabbard for moving forward. The second issue we raised with them, again, turned out to be a
Robin, what committees is it referred to?
I'm sorry, Mary?
What are the 2 committees it's referred to?
Oh, excuse me. Hang on, I got it right here.
While you're looking at that, I'll go ahead.
EEP, Environment and Finance.
Okay. But there's no financial consequence in it, is there? Okay, so that's a control issue. That's what you need to care about, is that there's somebody wants control.
Yeah, and then on the companion bill that Senator Gabbard introduced, it's referred to AEN and judiciary.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. I wanted to ask if they change this law for the council, does that override the statute as a whole, the previous statute? They carve out an exception, and then that statute would they, when they compile the law, would they have to say except for the environmental council?
No, because the way that the provision in Chapter 92 is written, it's unless your statute it says otherwise, right? You're a specific.
Oh, it's already there. Okay.
Yeah. Then that's kind of the default, and our statute didn't cover what constituted quorum, so we were stuck under the default rule.
Oh, perfect. That sounds like it's unobjectionable. Okay.
Yes, not only unobjectionable, but actually important enough. We were seen as important enough for them to move it forward, is how I look at it. I see the glass half full there. The other question we asked them was about the vacancies and the 4 vacancies that we had. And again, they were very responsive to that and actually suggested that if we draft some language for them, they might submit a letter to the governor, which indeed happened. We drafted a letter. They wrote to the governor. I'm not sure of the exact timing, but the bottom line is that 4 new names have now been proposed. These are people who've been waiting for a while. We made that point. And Onana may want to fill in some of the details, but basically all we're waiting for now is the committee meetings or the quote, the hearings for these four nominees. It's public. Because since it was posted on the site, you can look them up. It's governor's message GM 598 through 603, if I remember correctly. And you'll see the names of the people who were recommended. Onana, you want to add to that?
Yeah, on that note, so Gordon, you joined the meeting maybe about 10 minutes ago. Welcome. If you can just go ahead and state your name for the record and note whether or not anybody's in the room with you.
Oh, Gordon Scruton, no one's in the room with me.
Okay, thank you. And Gordon's one of the nominees. So Gordon's been coming to a few meetings now over the last several months. So welcome, and we'll go ahead and at least drop some testimony in support of that when your hearing date comes up.
Yes, thank you. Let me just elaborate. I'm sorry. I did get a call from the governor's office saying that they are forwarding the application. And they said, and after all the committee meets and all the recommendations, in a couple months or so, they'll get back to me.
Okay, good. Yeah, so if you want to track yours, do you remember which number his is, Robin?
No way I can find it because when I just go to the legislative website.
Okay, yeah. So while we look for that, Gordon, yeah, you can track your governor's message because they actually sent it. So we'll just keep an eye out for when the hearing is. But just to give everybody a little more information on how that letter got sent to the governor, Robin gave a good rundown of that. If you folks recall, previously we had voted to draft a letter to boards and commissions because we were aware that some applications were pending. We got a response back that wasn't, it was confusing because they were, it basically said that all of the members are ex officio and that we're fully appointed, which was not true. So we finally, actually after the letter got sent out by Rep. Lowen and Senator Gabbard, boards and commissions did give me a call. So we straightened it out, and the boards and commissions read the wrong part of the bill. If you folks remember, HB 1318, actually, it wasn't just council specific. It had a lot of different parts to it. So there was just some confusion as to how many members we're allowed to have, and then also confusion as to how many members we currently have. So in that discussion, boards and commissions did inform us, and this just happened, late last week, basically, that they were getting appointments out for the 4 new members. So I think with that, we should be at 14. We'll be at 15. We're currently at 11 right now. So
Gordon, you are GM 600. So if you go to the legislature's website, just type in GM 600 and you'll see it. Onana, should I say anything about the other people that were nominated, or?
Go ahead.
I know 2 of the other people that were nominated. One is Moana Bijur, who is the executive director of the Conservation Council for Hawaii. I've worked with her for 2 years. She's a very talented woman, and I think very knowledgeable and will be very useful. The other person is somebody from this island, Lanai, and her name is Rachel Sprague, and Rachel is co-director of Conservation and Natural Resources for Palama Lanai and has a tremendous national network. She's on the National Wildlife Fund and just on a number of she'll bring a wonderful broad perspective as well as local knowledge. So I think since I personally know both of them, I feel very strongly for them.
And then Ron, I believe the last person, Michelle, and they can have such a hard time with her last name, Lefebvre.
Let me make it easy. Michelle Lefebvre.
Lefebvre, thank you.
Yeah,
if you want to say it,
I do know Michelle. I'm pleased to hear that she applied. She is an environmental scientist, something like me, a lot of experience in NEPA, more on mainland projects, but now doing a lot of EAs and EISs over here. Maybe not that it matters, but she's about 40 years old and married to an archaeologist, mother of 2. and active in her community.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think you'll have some really good, solid individuals joining us, and I think I'd like to think that Onauna's conversation with boards and commissions and our letter to the governor and Rep. Lowen and Senator Gabbard's push helped the governor move it forward a little bit. Mary Alice, I know you played a role in this as well, so thank you for that. I think I think we did it diplomatically as long as we could, and then we notched it up a little bit, and I think it worked. So good work all around. Okay, Mary, you're going to ask a question. I see your lips moving.
I just wanted to add that when the realtors did their thing with the, we talked to several of the senators about the fact they were encouraging us to volunteer for boards and commissions. And I used that opportunity to say, well, that's all fine and well, but we can't get hearings. And so I'm sure that some of them might have, made some notes as well. So I think just getting that groundswell going. And while you were talking, I reached out to the PR person for the geothermal plant. And they're on the road right now, but as soon as they get stationary, they'll send me the link for the webinar meeting. So
Great.
I'll forward that to Les to send out to all of us.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, because I'd have to go back through Facebook to find it. So this is great.
No,
Yeah,
I know the PR person. So
I think that, the process took longer than we liked, but it did work. And I picture in my mind, I see Senator Gabbard's face when we walked him through the process, and he was really upset that, they try so hard to get citizens involved in government, and this thing just, especially when we mentioned that some people hadn't even been acknowledged that they'd submitted something, he was aghast. So they both did a good job for us. Okay, let me move on to part two, because we still have a part three. Part two is the bills. Let me just, in a tale of woe, tell you that it was really impossible to do this in a timely way to get you the chart that I would like you to have, because the final day for new bills was the 26th, so only a few days ago. And when you go to do a search for bills and you put in the word environment, it's like, okay, there's an environment for child welfare, there's an environment for prisoners, there's an environment for, beach patrols. I mean, it was, and I didn't know how else to sort. So I finally narrowed the 256 to 254. And what I have to do today, since I couldn't send you this list because it's really not complete, and I know we're missing a lot, and I thought maybe Mary Alice and I at some point could compare notes, but I wanted to call your attention to a couple of bills to take a look at. Again, I'm just going to give you the numbers and a little bit of the highlight. I promise I won't take too long, and many of you do this on your own, but there's a couple that came to my mind. I tried to narrow it down to those that had either a specific address to us, like HB 1810, which we talked about because that was quorum. But there's some others that I thought you might look at. And again, this is by no means conclusive. One of the things I'd like us to talk about when I'm pilot this part is how you want us to deal with testimony, since we're not going to have time to go through each of these in discussion. And so we need to talk about how you'd like us to submit. So I'll do the House bills first. Number HB 1473 requires environmental impact statements to consider whether the proposed action will exacerbate socioeconomic disparities. There are two of those. The Senate bill was SB 2121. It's a part of the OHA package. And Onauna, you had mentioned you might be talking to some people about that. Do you want to talk about that or not yet?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say, the OHA folks reached out to Mahina and I, and so we did, just an informational Zoom with them. This was prior to, they were trying to do research on whether or not to introduce this bill, right? So we talked about, we gave some comments on it and what we thought would be potential challenges for them in terms of this bill, had some follow-up questions, what they saw in terms of how do you do this assessment and whatnot. One of the questions we posed was, okay, so how exactly do you measure whether an action will exacerbate socioeconomic disparities, and also how is this different from the requirement that socioeconomics are already required to be considered by Chapter 343? We didn't get a response back on that, but those would be, things in terms of our own discussion that we might consider. So it was, just OHA folks reaching out, trying to get an idea of where, where there might be some weaknesses in their bill or what kind of questions might come up. But other than that, we didn't have any follow-up on that. I don't know, Mahina, since you were present for that, if you want to add anything about that discussion. It was a good discussion. So yeah, I think definitely stuff for us to consider as a group.
Mahina, anything to add?
No, I think Onana captured it perfectly. It was a good meeting.
Okay. I'll try and do this. Onani, tell me if this is taking too much time and I'll.
No, I think it's fine.
Okay.
And then I was just going to say, if any members of the public had questions while we're going over some of these bills, feel free to raise your hand or whatnot if you questions or comment.
Again, these are, I have a whole list. These are just the ones that I'm trying to highlight today. Okay, let me go to the next one. HB 1750 makes the new construction of affordable housing eligible for exemption from environmental impact statements and environmental assessment requirements. We've seen this last session as well. It's just, there's always the discussion of affordable housing and EISs, so it's back. HB 1803, this was Senator Gabbert's, the sister bill is Senate Bill 2962, and that's a constitutional amendment that recognizes and protects the inherent inalienable right of all people to clean water and air and healthy ecosystems. It goes on quite a bit. It was came up last year, didn't move forward, but it's back again. 1810, I referenced to you, what is a quorum? HB 2120 changes how we define and deal with emergencies. It's part of the governor's package. And I know we talked a lot about emergencies. I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to analyze that bill, but I'm just calling it to your attention. Take a look at it. HB 2256, we've seen before. It might get new life, establishes a Department of Environmental Protection by July 1, 2026. So it's written a little bit differently. Creates a Department of Environmental Protection working group to address the logistics required for the state to establish a Department of Environmental Protection. Requires the group to submit a report to the legislature prior to the 2025 session. So it's forward-looking. I think it's a really interesting way to get it on the agenda. Mary Alice, you want to add anything about that one?
No, I think this is a carryover from last year, but I'm not sure. Rep. Lowen had a bill maybe 2 years ago, or 3, requesting the creation of establishing a Department of Environment, and she then changed it to a concurrent resolution, and it passed and directed the Office of the Governor to convene a task group to make a report on the steps it would take to create a Department of Environment. That didn't happen, so I would think that the legislature is looking to try to elevate that to a bill at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that was the impression we got, Robin, right? Is that she wanted to kind of revive that, Replin wanted to revive that and at least get a working group going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's also a bill to create a Department of Housing that is it hasn't been scheduled for a hearing yet. It's not clear that it will get heard by the, because it's introduced by the chair of the Senate Housing Committee, but whether it moves forward from there is another question.
Robin,
Okay,
can I ask for are you going to provide a report with all these bill numbers, or should we be writing them down now? If so, what's the emergency one again?
Oh, yes, you should be writing it down. I'm not sure how I can get this to you.
It's
I think Robin.
2120.
2120?
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, and Jody, correct me if I'm wrong, but once Robin completes his list, I don't know that, does he need to wait to provide this at the next meeting, or could he share it with Les and have Les pass it on to the council as the, preliminary list of, legislation we may want to follow?
I guess, I'm trying to think. I mean, it's not. The committee didn't meet, it's not specifically spelled out on the agenda, but I mean, you're discussing it. The difference between your discussion right now and of it sent out.
Yeah, I just want to know if Robin can share the list of bills that we're talking about. We're not for action. It's just these are the ones that were mentioned, and the reason it couldn't be on this agenda was because our agenda deadline was before, right? Yeah, I just want to know, can he share his list of bills? Not any position, but rather than waiting till the March meeting, right?
Yeah, I think so. I guess I would. My only concern is that it's not, spelled out specifically or enough on the agenda. But other than that, I mean, I'm like I said, having a discussion in open session. So yeah, you can send out the list.
Okay, so Robin, yeah, maybe because I know you're going through it quickly. If that's okay, just send it to Les after, and Les can circulate it.
Okay. Ron, the answer to your question, I wasn't sure you got it, was HB 2120. Was about emergencies. Okay, the next one is really interesting. Senate Bill 2448. The purpose of this act is to require for each draft EIS and EA a public hearing in any community that will be directly affected by the underlying proposed action. And I thought that was so interesting. I went back this morning and looked at our rules because I thought Maka'ala and I got into a good discussion about that with Scott and the rest of the council. And our rule, if you go back and take a look at 11.200.1.23.d, David, we talk about having it on an island. We didn't specifically say community. So it's an interesting issue for us, the island.
But doesn't that relate to EISs only?
You probably.
Yeah.
There's 10 times as many EAs. I mean, it could really, you could really spend a lot of time doing public hearings for EAs. They're not required. In fact, hearings as a term are not, that's not part of the EIS law. So I don't know under what authority a hearing would be held. And, there's not an entity that votes at the hearing. So I'm not sure what that even means.
Well, all I'm suggesting is you look at this bill because it is a bill, and it's sent on to agriculture and environment, and GVO, that's government. GVO is government operations. What's GVO, Mary?
Yeah, government operations.
Yeah, right.
And judiciary and WHAM. So I don't know where it's going or what much about it. I just wanted to highlight it to you because I thought it was such an interesting proposal. Good points that you made, Ron.
Yeah, that might be something we consider later as comments too.
The next one is Senate Bill 2453. The purpose of this act increases from 45 days to 90 days the deadline by which county legislative bodies shall approve housing projects in 201H, but also establish that any housing project developed pursuant to Section 201H or with state or county funds shall not be exempt from an environmental assessment. So I'm not taking any, I'm clearly not the person to take a stand on any of these, but I just wanted to call some of these to your attention. And then just a couple more. Senate Bill 2668. The purpose of this act is to require each county to establish its own land use commission to
Oh,
make
that's,
certain
yeah, that's
certain-
Robert Baker's bill.
and repeal the state land use commission. Mary Alice, you've got a wonderful look on your face for that one. Do you want to comment at this point or not quite yet?
Can you repeat that again, Ron? Rob?
Robin, sure. It's
Robin,
SB
yeah.
2668,
2668.
Senate Bill 2668.
Right. Thank you.
And the last one I want to call to your attention is Senate Bill 3012, and that sets up green fees. There's a lot of similar, if not companion bills to that in the House versions. One of the challenges I had, some bills list with a companion, other bills, when you read through them, seem very similar, but there may be differences. I haven't had a chance again to go through it. So I tried to list in that. You'll see in the category, it says companion or similar. The best I could do. So I apologize to everybody. I know this would have been nicer to have the list, but the timing of it just didn't work, and I haven't had a chance to go through all of them in detail. We will send it out to you with the note that I'm sure Mary Alice's list is much more comprehensive than this. Of course, her Kuleana is much broader than ours. So I also put down where I could the name of the legislator who introduced the bill, and you'll see in some cases it's just one person, but in other cases there's 10 other sponsors, and I didn't list them all. You can easily, the legislator website's really accessible and easy to use. So, okay, any questions on anything I brought up here so far?
I was just gonna say, you don't need to apologize. That's a great effort, and thank you for putting this together, Robin. So we recognize that getting this together is very difficult, and we look forward to seeing the actual list. And then at the next meeting for February, oh no, this is February. Next meeting for March, I think what we can do, if everybody's amenable to it, is decide whether or not the council wants to take a position on any of these bills, and we can work on drafting testimony, because we didn't have an approval to draft testimony on behalf of the council today. Of course, folks, you're always welcome to submit testimony in your individual capacity. Sorry, Mary, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it would be it might be helpful to Robin if we go ahead and schedule a legislative committee meeting as soon as Sunshine Law allows us to next week.
I was going to add that as part of my request. I didn't want to wait till the next month. I would like to do it in a week or so, or something like that.
Right.
I'm going to send out this list in an Excel format rather than a PDF, so that you can add to it if you've seen some, or deal with it however you wish. Yeah, Onana, maybe it's sometime at the end of this meeting we can agree to schedule a legislative committee meeting.
Yep, that's fine. And then okay. Yep.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, we do need to do that if we're going to move in any kind of expeditious way. Anything else before I move to the PIG final report?
Any questions or comments from members of the public?
Roy, just a side note before I move on, there were a number of bills I picked up that had cesspools and wastewater involved. They weren't specifically germane to us, so I didn't highlight them, but you'll notice them in the list. I included them for you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I've been kind of following them, but I didn't see anything really major.
I'm responsible for tracking them for the realtors, so I have the whole list.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let me move on to this final report of the Strategic Planning Forum Permitted Interaction Group, the PIG. You all got a copy of that in your agenda. The timeline was quite clear. Today is to just go over our final report, which we'll do in a minute. March, we actually vote on our recommendations to how the forum will go. And then in April, we'd have the forum itself. The Strategic Planning Committee, which Onana reminded me has already been formed, will listen carefully to the conversation in April, and then their responsibility will be for the May meeting to come back with their report on what the forum results were, if you will. So that's the process we've outlined. The thing I wanted to talk about the most is the next section. We're talking about the April meeting, and we were thinking of doing it in two-hour segments, something like 10 to 12 and a half hour for potty break and lunch, and then maybe 12:30 or 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. That would give us 4 hours. There would be only one other thing on the agenda, and that is a brief exemption committee report. And that's because of some timing issues that Ron raised earlier this morning. So we wanted to have your approval of that concept. And then the other piece was after some research, this year, the rules would require us to have an open regular meeting. So anybody, the public is invited. But there was some discussion about making an effort to send out a specific invitation to people that we thought were critical to have as participants. Mary Alice obviously is one, although you've been at all of our meetings just to make sure that you knew you were especially invited and chained to your desk for this form. But also the two names that came up were Scott Glenn and Denise Antonelli. And these are two people who you all know have invested so much and have so much knowledge to bring to this conversation. And so we thought, while they're of course welcome, we would actually reach out to invite them to this conversation. And so you can invite anybody you want, but again, from us to do that, we thought we would raise it. So there are two questions that I wanted to have a discussion about today, if that's okay, Onana. One is, are there other individuals we think that are critical to this, and not that we would keep anybody out, but do we want to make a special effort to invite them in? And then secondly, does that time frame make sense? 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. Let me just explain how we saw the day going, and then we can talk about those two things. One is we would have Onana begin with an introduction and a background of the purpose of this. And then I like to do a strategic planning conversation by beginning with our successes. And so we were going to ask Onana to talk a little bit about what we've accomplished in the last, say, 5 years, which in my opinion, having been here through much of that, and many of you are significant from what the council was able to accomplish. And so to talk about that, and then Roy was going to take a look back through the annual reports that he's been searching for, and in a maybe 5 minutes presentation, talk a little bit about what he found in those. And then we were going to move into the substance. And remember, this came about in large part because of the survey that we did that indicated this unceasing desire for us to be more than we are authorized to be. And so we thought we would talk about what is it we are legally charged with doing, and how do we do that first? Not what else should we do or what else could we do, but how do we do what we are charged to do well, given what few resources we have other than the wonderful group of faces I see in front of me now, and Mary Alice's effort to get more staff in the office. And what do we do? And what I was going to do as the facilitator, and I should say I'm going to be the facilitator, and we'll ask Les to be the Zoom facilitator. And I don't think we'll need breakout rooms unless we get an overwhelming number of people, which we haven't done in years. So, and so what I was going to suggest we do was take the keywords out of our charge and talk about them. What do they mean? How do we use them? How can we be effective with what little we have? What are our priorities? How do we stretch the resources that Mary Alice has been sharing with us? How do we communicate what our role is to the community at large, who we know have these tremendous expectations for us? And then lastly, and I say that purposely, lastly, were we to go beyond and ask, say, the Ledge to give us more authority in a certain key areas, what would that be? What would we want to do if we could expand our role? And so that's basically how I see the day going. What have we done? What are we charged with doing? How do we do what we've been charged to do well? And if we were to go beyond that, what would it be? So with that as the context for the day, again, I go back to asking your opinions on breaking it up into two sections and inviting specific individuals. And then lastly, the way I've framed the agenda. So I'll open it up and finally shut up.
I think it's a fabulous idea and I recommend that everybody agree. And I have to leave in 5 minutes. You won't lose quorum, right? You'll be okay on quorum, won't you, Nana?
Yeah, we'll be okay today. Thanks, Mary. No, I think it's good, Robin. Thank you so much for putting this together. I mean, maybe one other thought for a potential invitee. I don't know if Representative Lowen has a time or not, but I know she's, done a lot of work in this area. Was she on a council in the past? I'm trying to remember.
She and Scott went to school together.
Yeah, I think they helped to author the 343, the final report that task force. So I know she's busy. She's somebody else who came to mind who we might want to invite. I'm interested to see, to hear who Mary Alice might recommend.
Yeah, just want to echo thanks, Robin, for putting this thought in. It really, I think it's so timely, and appreciate you putting the effort and nudging us in this direction. A look at who we were, who we are, and who we want to be, particularly given our various government umbrella changes. So thank you for doing this. I, to that note, really like having Scott and Denise involved, given their deep knowledge of the council and relationships that we've made with them through this work. I really like Mary Alice being there and a look towards the council's future under OPSD. Yeah, so just thank you. I don't have more to add.
Anybody else? How about the 2 hours, 2 hours? Does that make sense to you all, or do you want to just go straight through with 3 hours or something?
Robin, I don't mean to hog here, but we're talking about our April meeting, which would be, I think our April meeting will be when the legislature is still in session. And if we moved our meeting to the next week, they wouldn't be in session, if I'm correct. Is that right, Mary Alice? I think they're supposed to end the first week of April this year.
No, they end on May 5th.
Oh gosh, never mind, shut up. Okay, sorry. I'm concerned about having Scott and then Denise available during the legislative session.
Yeah, I don't anticipate any of the people we had staying for 3 or 4 hours. That's an awful lot. But I think making the effort to have them included, even if they just came in and gave a 5-minute opinion on something, might be. It's a courtesy as well as an invaluable addition to us, is how I see it. The 2 hours and 2 hours, everybody comfortable with that? That makes sense?
Yeah, and sorry, just really quick, I'm going to go off topic since Mary said she had to leave so soon. I just want to make sure everybody remembers which committees they're on. Because I know there was a question this morning and there wasn't quorum. So legislative is Robin, Mahina, Mary, and Mike. And then Mary, the other one that you're on is INO. So I'll go over the other committees for everybody else. But yeah, just before we lose you, Mary.
I concur.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, Mary, we'll send you an email about the Ledge Committee meeting.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, that's. Go ahead, Ryan.
I had a comment. Yeah, I had started looking at the old annual reports, and the first one I looked at was 1996, and it was just kind of blown away at the the detail and all of that they had. And I guess Les commented that I guess Gary Gill was a he was the OEQC director back then, and he worked hard, and I guess he had a vision. So I'm not sure if you want to invite Gary Gill, but just a suggestion. But yeah, but of course he had a big staff. He had a budget. Well, I don't know what he did, but he just worked, put in a lot of hours and so on. So he had a vision, seemed like. So
Good suggestion, Roy.
Yeah, I like that. What I think would be good is, I mean, I can reach out to Scott and Denise. I don't know Gary. And Mary Alice we've got right here, and we'll tie her down then. But
Robin,
oh,
if
no.
I may make a
Yeah.
suggestion. So today, right, is the report, the final report of the PIC. So we're presenting the final report to the council. In March, it'll be agendized that we vote on the final report. So maybe March is the time, if Robin, you want to kind of come up with that final list of who to reach out to, and we can reach out to them then once the vote is done.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
yeah, okay. One more comment. If you wanted a lot of participation, then an announcement in the environmental notice would be helpful. I mean, that's how we got a large number of participants for our INO presentations. But if you have too many people, I know that might get unwieldy. So it's up to you folks.
Yeah, thank you, Roy. I hesitate to do that because I want to have a really substantive conversation, and I'm just afraid if there's a lot of people thinking something else is going to happen, we lose the focus. It's going to be hard enough to do it on Zoom with me giving everybody 3 minutes and a grief for going over. So I would rather not make it. I mean, it's open to the public. It's going to be on the agenda. They're welcome to come, but I'm not sure I want to send out something specifically.
Yeah, I think part of the discussion, if I recall correctly from our PIG meeting, was that we wanted, this doesn't need to be the one-off, strategic planning session, right? This, hopefully we can accomplish everything in that April session, but it might not be the case, and it might be a little bit more organized for us if we get, kind of the interested stakeholders in terms of like the folks who are really familiar with the council and, what our limitations are, what we're allowed to do by statute, and getting feedback there. And then maybe we can, get some direction and open it up further. A personal concern, I guess, to opening it up to the public generally. I mean, again, they can attend the meeting, but that was part of the survey, right? And the survey results, one of the things the survey results really showed us was that people have no idea what we do or what we can do, because we're limited by our statutory authority. So we're trying to work within those confines.
The only other thing I would say before I really do shut up is that I would make an effort to get the 4 nominees to participate. If they have not been approved by then, or even if they have, I don't know when they would officially begin their term, but they ought to be invited so they can, at the very least, listen.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. Thank you everybody. Much appreciate it. And sorry I took so much time.
Thank you, Robin. Does anybody else have any questions on, Mike, I saw you had a hand up earlier. Did you?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, just checking. Yeah, but if there's any other questions or comments on the PIC's final report, and a copy of that is in the meeting materials. So you folks can go ahead and take a look at it. So our next process will be that we vote on whether or not to accept the final report at our March meeting. And if it is accepted, then the strategic planning committee will move forward with getting this planned. And then, yeah, I'll say before I move on, sorry. You have your hand up, Robin?
No.
Okay. Any other questions on the strategic planning PIG report or comments from members of the public? Okay. Thanks again, Robin, for that. Okay, so we, due to a miscommunication, we unfortunately did not agendize the Rules Committee update, so we cannot go through that, although the Rules Committee did meet today. So there are some action items that will come from that at a future meeting. So sorry about that, Mahina. And I do, again, just want to briefly go over who's on the committees. For the Strategic Planning Committee, so, you folks will come into action probably next month after the vote on the PIG's final report. I have Robin, Ron, Makaala, and Roy on the Strategic Planning Committee. So just as a reminder to you folks, let's see, INO is Mary, Roy, Mahina, and Dawn. Exemptions, Ron, Makaala, Mike, myself, and Robin. Rules is Mahina, Makaala, myself, Ron, and Dawn. And then again, Legislative Committee is Robin, Mahina, Mary, and Mike. So please make sure to remember your committees. I made you guys those really nice cards some time ago, and if I need to recirculate them, please let me know. It's not just for my health, it's for you to keep with you so you know what committee you're on. Thanks, Robin, go ahead.
I'm going to have to get off one of those committees. I can't be on
Okay.
way too much.
Okay.
We can talk about it, but
Yeah, we can talk about it. I'm trying to think. I was like, we kind of need you on everything you're on, but hopefully there'll be some new blood coming in soon. So if you can hang on for a couple more months, and then we can redistribute when we get more people. Okay.
Well, now I have a question.
Yes.
Is the annual report committee no longer?
So yeah, I didn't go over that just because we're not meeting. I mean, I think we should still have the committee. So right now that's currently Roy, Steph, and Tessie, if I recall correctly. And yeah. So Robin, we had taken you off that one because you wanted to help with exemptions, which is good. But yeah, I'm thinking we do keep that committee because we still need to prep a report to, OP, but it'll probably, be less intense unless something comes from strategic planning that says otherwise. And then Mary Alice will try to be more organized next year and get you a report much quicker. I know it was a really short deadline this year with everybody, adjusting to the change. Yeah. Steph, do you have a recommendation either way, whether to keep it or not?
I would suggest keeping it as we, find our new normal. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Mary Alice.
I have a question. Are these standing committees or permitted interaction groups?
These are the standing committees. Mm-hmm. Yes.
They have to be noticed as in sunshine, but you don't have to have the 3 meeting rule that a permitted interaction group does.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. Other than that, the only thing is, our next meeting is Tuesday, March 1st. Going to keep the same time from 1 to 3:30 unless, we need to move it. Any questions or comments, members of the public? Okay, and we'll open it up to public forum if there are any other announcements that need to be made.
Onana, just a question. If I want to schedule a meeting for the legislative committee, say next week, can I just send out an email requesting their participation? Or does that have to go less?
Have Les do it and propose, the time, and then agendas need to be posted 6 days prior, right? So you just have to make sure to the meeting. So what is today, Tuesday? If you're trying to have a Tuesday meeting, your agenda is going to need to be posted tomorrow. That's just an example of your 6 days, right? Yeah. So if you want later in the week, you can do it later in the week.
So if I wanted to have the meeting on say the 10th, today is the 1st.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be scheduled and announced by when?
6 days prior.
Yeah, so it'd be the 4th, Friday the 4th. Yep. Okay. Yeah, Friday the 4th, Robin, if you can get your agenda together before. So
Well,
I think
first we have to send out a note to everybody saying if they can make it.
You're right, yeah. Mhm. And then just give, you know, Jody and less time to review the agenda and get it posted. Mhm. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay. Well, if not, then, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It's 2:19 p.m. Nice to see everybody, and thank you folks again for your continued hard work on everything. So we'll see you folks in March, if not sooner. All right. Bye, Mike.
Thank
Nice to
you.
see you, Mike. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Les.
Oh, you're welcome.
Les.
See you guys.
Okay.
Bye.